Welcome to the Lightforge podcast. This is ADWCTA.
This is Merps. Hello. All right. Expansion. We're gonna talk about it.
There
Stuff
is
was
an
released.
expansion. We talked about it a little last time in that we mentioned that it exists, but we didn't go into it because the much bigger issue or like deal was that Taverns of Times was here and they nerfed the offering rates of all these ridiculous cards, and it's a whole new meta. And Arena feels pretty good right now. It's definitely a testament to like the large pushes that have been happening from the balance team. But that's not what this episode is about. This podcast, we will look and take a preview at Narthia, right? Murder at Castle Narthia.
Nathria.
Nathria, not Narthia.
Not Narthia.
Nathria. Okay. Weird names. But regardless, Murder at Castle Nathria is the next expansion for Hearthstone, and it's going to be a big one. This is going to have huge impacts on the game. Why, Merps? Why would this have a huge impact on the game besides the fact that it's another, 140 cards?
Because it's a new expansion? I don't know.
No, because they added a new card type. A brand new card type, which has not been seen in the entire game. They have added, what card types have they added since the beginning? They have added quests.
They've added
heroes,
character cards. Yeah, hero cards, character cards.
And none of those are in Arena. Side quests are in Arena, but they're basically unplayed. Now they're adding locations, which, as far as we know, is one, going to be in the Arena. Two, is going to be a permanent feature in Hearthstone from now on. So it is not just this set. It is at least some sets going forward, if not every set going forward. So that's exciting, and they're pretty cool too. So let's dig into them. How do locations work?
All right, so locations are cards that are played onto the battlefield for an initial cost. They have a mana cost, just like all other cards that you are familiar with, and then they have an ability that can be activated for free once per turn, and it costs 1 durability. So it's got a 1-turn cooldown, and it costs 1 durability, but it can be activated on your turn. And then, it just kind of stays there, and then you can kind of use it. It's an additional resource that can be kind of saved up once you have played it for the initial cost.
Mm-hmm. So basically, it's a weapon. It is a weapon that you do not put in your weapon slot and goes on the board instead like one of your minions, but it is effectively a weapon. The only difference is every time you use it, it skips another turn rather than being able to be used the next turn immediately. So for a weapon, let's say it has 3 charges, use it the turn you play, the turn after, and the third turn. If this is a location, you use it the turn you play it, you use it the third turn, and then you use it the 5th turn. That is the difference between locations and weapons. Now, they don't sound like they're the same thing, but they are the same thing. It's also going to do really weird stuff to the board when it comes to positioning. But I really don't want to think about that. That's like a freaking nightmare to me. But it's like dormant cards, right? Except they're always dormant. They will never go undormant. There's a lot of effects. But okay. So my first impressions of these cards, without looking at a card and just hearing about this mechanic, is holy crap, this is going to be OP in Arena. Because one, they're like weapons, and weapons are OP in Arena. And two, one of the big things about Constructed is depending on the type of deck, you get to determine how long the game goes on for. And in Arena, games go on for roughly the same amount of time. Like the duration of when you win or lose a game is not that wide compared to Constructed and compared to flexibility and deck building. So in Arena, delaying the game by 5 turns is oftentimes a lot less, a lot more meaning, a lot less of a negative than it is in many matchups in Constructed where it can be countered. So I'm like, okay, weapons are OP, locations are probably OP. Location stretches out for even more, it's probably even more OP. Got it, we're just gonna have super OP cards dominating the game. It's kind of whatever because we already have other super OP cards. In fact, their beta testing version of locations was basically like caverns, right? like what's that paladin one called again? Bridge, where something happens for 3 turns afterwards after you cast it, right? It's kind of like locations, not exactly, but you get that kind of like same feel, right? Like they are literal locations, caverns or bridge, and they do something on the successive turns. And those cards, a lot of them were OP, like caverns, like bridge. But then I looked at the cards themselves, and I did some math, and the cards are actually not OP. I didn't like do the math on every single card, so maybe my intuitions are like just like a little like off in looking at some of them, but I picked some of the ones that I thought were the best and ran the math on them. And they're actually fine. They like all came out in like the B range. None of them for my like initial rough math. I'm gonna have better math later before evaluation, so don't take this as like written in stone. But I don't think any of them even hit an A. I think they were like B's and B pluses, and these are the ones that I thought were good on a first glance. So like I looked at Great Hall, the Paladin one, which is 2 mana, 3 charges, set a minion's attack and health to 3. It is that I'm blanking on the name, the 4 mana 3/4 Paladin card that
Keeper of Oldemon.
Yeah, it's Oldemon. It's Oldemon's ability 3 times for 2 mana. Like that sounds really good. It is not. It is not really good. It's playable. The cards are also not like bad, but they seem like really balanced, especially for class cards. Like even as neutral cards, they would not have been too powerful. They may have been too like weird or like fancy, but they would not have been too powerful. And as class cards, they're really just like good class cards. They're not even great class cards. Like we're not even. It's not that we're not entering the territory of broken cards like Caverns. We're not even entering the territory of like really good / great class cards that no one has a problem with. Like these are like fireballs, you know? Like they're good. You want them, and these are the good ones. But they're not like at all pushing the limits of what a class card does.
I think that's fair to say. Yeah, there's a difference now between just cards that are good and then game-breaking, colossal swing type of cards. And even for neutrals, right? You saw a lot of really game-breaking, like if you're able to play this, you kind of win cards. And a lot of these are not it. They play very well within the arena ecosystem that I think you should be used to by now, in which, yeah, you should expect some good value for a card. Good value for a card is just the standard nowadays.
Yeah. And especially if you're delaying something by 5 turns, right? Like you should get good value. You better get good value. Just giving an example of some of these cards. So I think they revealed 8, maybe 9. I'm looking at the wiki right now. It has 8. But like the priest one says, give a minion +2/+1 and draw a card. 3 mana, 3 charges. So that's 3 mana, which you normally draw 2 cards, and it's not a good card anymore. And instead now you get to draw 3 cards, but the 2 cards are delayed, and you get to buff a minion. Like, that's good, but the delays on the buffs make them a little, like, actually makes them a lot less attractive. And the delay on the cards, it's just, you're putting so much, right? Like, whenever you play one of these cards, you're just like, okay, so I'm going to lose the board for a bit, and I'm going to catch back up, right? And if you're looking at Caverns, that's 4 mana, you lose the board by 1/1, you're immediately caught up the next turn. You look at these cards, like, look at, like, Nightcloak Sanctum, the mage one, which is 3 mana. Freeze a minion, summon a 2/2 volatile skeleton. That means in 3 turns, you're only getting 8 stats of tempo for 3 mana. After 3 turns. Like, these are not Caverns. These are, like, much worse.
Yep. So it's, once again, it's easy for you to look at these and be like, whoa, I'm getting so much. And you're just really relying on the fact that, my opponent won't have good ways to play around it, right? It's like, remember, after you use it, there's a 1-turn cooldown, so they could use that 1-turn cooldown to use it to sort of play around it advantageously, right? They have that little bit of space to sort of squeeze through a big minion, for example, if you're playing Paladin, to just, it's like, they can clear your board, or they can choose not to clear your board when you're the priest, because they don't want you to have something to buff, to have that initiative. I think that there is definitely sort of you have to have a game plan going in. These are not
Hmm.
cars that by themselves, because these days, what are the best cars? The best cars are the cars that by themselves win you the game, like secure you the game in a questionable position, or flip the board and bring you from a bad situation to a good situation immediately. That's why we talk about stuff like, oh yeah, it's Ibis, it's Colossals, it's Raid Boss and Nixia, stuff like that. Because those are the cars that do exactly what I'm talking about. And for a lot of these locations, they're just like, oh, this is nice. It's a nice add-on, right? It's a nice thing for me to also play and get additional value, but they don't win me the game, right? It's like we're not this
Yeah.
isn't RBO. This isn't like Rune of the Archmage either. These are just like nice complementary pieces to stuff that you
Hmm.
still need those bombs. You still need those bombs, and this is just what complements the rest of your deck.
Yeah, and they're not like curve cards because they cost so much mana and they drip their value to you very slowly over 5 turns. There's one so far, the Sinstone Graveyard, where that has only 2 charges. I don't know what happened to that. Maybe it got nerfed. Oh, Hedge Maze also only has 2 charges. But most of them take 5 turns to use up all their power. So they're just they got some problems. That being said, they're an exciting addition to the game. They'll be fun to use. It's just I was expecting them to be more powerful, and it's a good thing that they're not more powerful in the arena. And if you're wondering, wait, so then are they going to be used in constructed? I can't tell you that because we're not constructed players, but they are all very synergistic to something. So that is their value in constructed. And in arena, you're not getting that. So, or at least you're not getting that much of that. So their value is not as like that's where the value difference comes from between like say caverns and the locations. Caverns is just kind of slamming you with stats. These locations are all a little bit synergy, and you can tell the synergies work. Like if they are working, they're going to work really well because they will trigger 3 times. So it's 3 separate triggers of a synergy, which is very valuable. Um, and I don't know, maybe you can make them work in arena too, but just you have to rely on drawing one of these and playing it for your synergy. It is they are relatively high synergy cards that also have a base of being able to do some things. So yeah, I'm excited for these cards. It's kind of long overdue for Blizzard to have more things that do things that are not just minions. Like I thought they would have a second weapon slot, but this is the direction that they went with, and that is totally cool. I totally understand it, and maybe this will lead to different types of things with abilities, right? Like abilities are cool things to have instead of just everything being start of turn, end of turn, upon attack.
I'm actually really surprised it took them this long to do something like locations because for MTG, they've had enchantments for how
Mm-hmm.
long, right? Like you've
Mm-hmm.
always had enchantments to look at as a potential inspiration or just like some field card, right? Like that's always been some pretty low hanging fruit. I think like almost every card game has some sort of like stadium or field card. I know the Pokemon TCG has had that for a while, right? You have a stadium card, although obviously for Pokemon it makes a lot of sense flavor wise as well. Oh, it's a stadium, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we want like some stadium cards. So I think that like this makes a lot of sense, and I'm honestly shocked that it took this long for them to
Yeah.
do it this way. Yeah.
Yeah, and there seems like there's only going to be one location per class for this set, but expect more of these to come in future sets. Like this is exciting for the future, and honestly, they may be putting these at a low power level to start with, just so it doesn't overwhelm the game. Again, I don't know how it works in constructed, but just I was very surprised by their moderate power level in the arena. So yeah, especially after caverns. But yeah, there's also unrevealed ones, like the Warlock one. I think is the one that hasn't been revealed yet. So maybe that one's super ridiculous, and we're all gonna hate it the way we hate caverns. But yeah, that's locations. So that's exciting, and that's coming up. The other card mechanic that they revealed is Infuse. Um, Infuse it has a number after it, so it says like Infuse 2. I'll just give you an example. of the neutral common card with Infuse that they revealed. It's also one of the only neutral cards that they've revealed so far that's non-legendary. So we don't really have like oh, this is gonna ruin Arena kind of like neutral card yet. We'll see if it comes. But really, with the new dev team doing the balancing, I'm fully confident that if anything's out of control, the offering odds are going to be nerfed, so it'll be fine. So anyway, to show off the Infuse, it is a 2-mana, 2/3 taunt, common, neutral, pretty normal card, and then Infuse 3, gain +2/+2. And what that means is while this card is in your hand, after 3 minions die, it will gain +2/+2. It is a hand
Yep.
buff.
Yeah. Look, these mechanics that they introduced this expansion, I don't know, they're not that weird. This is a pretty normal mechanic. Like you've seen this sort of similar mechanic as well. Like previously, not as an actual mechanic, but yeah, if something dies, if something takes damage, etc., etc.
Yeah, even
Something else gains
the
status.
Naga mechanic in the previous set, right? If you cast
Yeah.
a spell while the Naga is in your hand, or if you cast 3 spells while this whatever's in your hand, it's in the same vein. But this one is about the board, and whenever we're talking about, I'm seeing in chat. I forgot the word friendly, but yes, Infuse is only friendly minions. That is what I meant. It is not all minions. It is friendly minions. Your opponent's minions do not infuse your cards. Okay, so for the 2-mana 2/3, for example, the power level, it reminds me of like that Warlock card that summons imps. After like it's 2 mana, you summon a 3/2 imp, and then when it becomes 5 mana, it's still for 2 mana. You get to summon 2 3/2 imps, and when it's 10 mana, you get to summon 3 3/2 imps if it gets there, right? For like no extra, just bonus. So that one's pegged on time. This one's pegged on things dying. But it's the same kind of idea where you just get, like, for these smaller cards especially, you just get more stuff in the future so that they can have uses in later on in the game. And it's not just like, oh, I top decked a 2-drop and it's turn 8. That is a crappy card. So I do like the design. I think obviously it's a very good card because the 2-mana 2/3 taunt is already a good card. So a 2-mana 2/3 taunt with Infuse 3 gain +2/+2 is a very good card. Like this is not. No one's gonna look at this card and be like, "This is ruining Arena," but this card's going to be like in that B plus probably territory where it's gonna be sneaky good. It's gonna be like Rams, where when Rams was announced, we certainly underrated the card like crazy. And since then, it's been in almost every single meta, and it's been dominant in almost every single meta. And but people don't have a problem with it. It's almost always the top card that no one's calling for a nerf to in neutral. And I think this card is going to be like Ram. By the way, the card's name is called Priest of the Deceased. So yeah. I don't know what the other neutral cards with Infuse are, but it's all gonna be interesting. It's a good mechanic. Like I was saying before, whenever you see on the board, you know this is gonna be arena relevant. You know this is gonna be like fun in the arena, and it'll lead to a lot more decision making because you're always managing your board resources in the arena every single game. That is a huge part of arena. So the Infuse mechanic generally is going to be a big winner in arena.
Yep. I'm looking forward to this expansion. I think that the best expansions from an arena standpoint are ones in which, it's not like when you see an expansion like Old Gods, you're just like, oh man, this was definitely
Mm-hmm.
not made for arena, right? And they even took out like the cards that we wanted, just the
Yeah,
standard,
they took
three
out
mana,
like the
three
3-mana
fours.
3/4s. Yeah, even
Yeah,
just because it mentioned the old gods, even though that was a totally good spider tank in arena back in the day.
yeah. So this is an expansion where it's like, okay, locations, even though they might have synergies with constructed decks and strategies, they certainly work in arena, or at least most of them should work and either be pretty good to just okay slash yeah, even if they're bad, whatever, you don't pick them, right? And with Infuse, like okay, this is a very arena relevant slash
Hmm.
friendly mechanic. This is fine,
They're
right? It's
all
like
good.
they're all good. It's like Discover is good for constructed and arena. This is like definitely, this is fine for arena. This is not like any sort of synergistic quest slash old god
Hmm.
mechanic that you just can't make work in arena at all, which means for that expansion, we are lacking content. Here, we're not lacking content for this expansion.
No, this is going to be a very big impact set into the arena, no matter what the other sets are. So there's also going to be a rotation, right? So everything's going to change, and it's hard to predict anything like too specifically right now. But one thing is for sure, like just seeing both of these mechanics, they are both arena friendly mechanics, and they are going to be interesting in the arena without kind of moving you to a different game, right? Like these are all arena mechanics, not just arena friendly, but like arena fundamentals friendly. Like they will make the game still feel like arena while adding different twists and spices to it. Um, like this set, I'm sure was not made with arena in mind, but it might as well have been. Like these are the best types of cards to add to the arena. So this is exciting. Also, the theme is interesting. It's a murder mystery. Like I like the fun summer ones. Like what is it? Karazhan. That was a fun one too.
Yeah, but it's gotten weird. People are like getting horny for the main vampire.
Oh my god,
Like
people are getting horny for stuff.
yeah, well,
Did you see the
this is just
post
what
on
happens.
Diablo Immortal where someone was getting horny for the blonde shadow quest giver person that shows a Prothia or whomever?
Prisvold?
Prisvold,
Prisvold?
yeah, Prisvold, who you could kill at some
What?
points because she's a traitor sometimes. Yeah, this is welcome to video games.
You know what? This is definitely a welcome to video games. Like if you didn't know, you should know by now. Yes. But
But
okay.
yeah, the set's going to be interesting. We're really looking forward to it. I mean, we're always looking forward to whatever the next set is, but the anticipation levels are different depending on the set. And some sets come out with stuff, and we're immediately like, danger, danger. Like, we want a new set of new cards, but danger, what's going to happen? I feel so secure with the next set. Less because, like, partly because the mechanics don't look like they're crazy, but also partly because the team has basically promised to make quick changes, and they've shown that they're making big changes to offering rates. And the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive to these big changes on offering rates to like the ridiculous cards. So presumably, it's going to keep happening, and then we're going to be in good arena metas from now on. Like, to the extent that we're in bad ones, it'll only last like a few days or a week or something. Like that would be an insane quality of life improvement for arena players. Like just absolutely insane because that has happened in very small spurts, like maybe 20% of the time in history.
Yep. So I'm excited. I think that this expansion, along with the fact that Matt London and team are looking at this, that sort of whatever happens, it should be addressed or at least acknowledged, right?
Hmm.
I think we are past the point in which we are sort of asking for acknowledgement, like, which is great. Like,
Yeah.
that Matt London and team are going to be responsive on Twitter, that they are, if there is any issue or if there is any unsavory parts of the meta, they will at least be aware of it
Hmm.
and tell everyone that they're working on it, which I think is the biggest first step that we have
Yeah,
crossed.
and they're doing much more than that. That like their
Yeah, they
changes are
are.
quick. Their changes for the last mini set. Like since then, they said that they would be quick, and they are quick. Like are they like lightning quick? No. And honestly, past teams have worked faster, so we know that they're like not like doing crazy stuff, right? But they're doing the work, and they're doing good work. And like when the new set releases, I think we should expect within a week for whatever changes, the first round of changes at least, to like smooth out the really rough edges to the extent there are any really rough edges. And maybe that will also be the time when they take a first stab at a class balance. Um, so yeah, and again, we're talking about balance in terms of more like nerfing really good nerfing offering rates of really overpowered cards to make the arena feel better. Class balance, That's a whole other story. It's not like, oh, they're terrible at class balance or whatever, but that's just so tricky. And there's so much luck involved in it to get it right in like the first time or the second time or even the third time. So I have less faith on class balance, but it's not really about class balance unless one class is super out of tune. Like it's really like I think we all realize this. Like we all feel this in the past few months when we've been playing. It's that class balance is nice and all, and sometimes in history we've had very good class balance, but the actual in the game feel of not having to see ridiculously overpowered cards every single match, even though the ridiculously overpowered cards still exist, and you still do see them, and you still do lose to them, and you still do draft them. Like, this is the new balance, and this is the new feeling, and those lowered offering rates really, really, really do make a difference. More so than having, like, a pitch-perfect class balance.
It's just such a shame Cavern Dreamer existed. It's such a shame. Like, I think... because look, people calling them out for Cavern Dreamer, you got every right to. It is probably the most, because like, I mean, game-breaking card on one is the literal worst, right?
Yes.
Like it is the literal worst, and we have all seen how powerful it is. The meta would be fine if it weren't for Cavern Dreamer, but Cavern Dreamer does exist, and it ends games on one, and there's literally nothing you can do about it a lot of the times. So yeah, we have had a otherwise very good, healthy meta pretty much completely ruined by one card that ends games on turn one. So that's just super unfortunate there.
Okay, so I have played, like, I don't know, probably, I want to say 7 runs in this meta so far. And I've seen 0 Cavern Dreamers. I feel like I'm incredibly lucky, and these are not like 0-3 runs, you know. I'm like averaging, I don't know, 8 wins or something. I'm doing pretty well in this meta, partly because of luck, but also partly because, hey, what do you know? That when the meta normalizes, good players do better. But yeah, so I don't know. I don't know if the offering rates for Cavern Dreamers is actually quite low, and people are just like freaking out because it makes such a big impact, or if I'm just super lucky. Never seen a single. It's not like I've never seen one on one, right? I've literally never seen one. No one even played it as a BM at the end before they win or lose. Never seen it. It's never gotten like discarded. Nothing. Like that card might as well not exist.
Wow, must be nice, man.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's enough people complain about it that I'm guessing other people are having different experiences, but I can attest to the experience of what if Cavern Dreamer did not exist. And that experience is really, really good. This meta is really, really good. Really good if Cavern Dreamer didn't exist, in that I've never seen one. So yeah, anyway, just overall excited about what the development. Yeah, we'll end the next set talk here and go to question from the GOAT, which we mentioned a little before. So question from the GOAT. I'm just going to talk about my upcoming trip because, as we mentioned in the last Lightforge, I'm leaving you guys. I'm leaving you guys for 2 weekends, and then I will be back on the 31st of July which is a Sunday, and we're going to start at 7 p.m., which is our normal start time, and we normally start way earlier for this, but that is our Narthia card valuation stream, where we're going to go like 6 to 8 hours. And this is going to push into like 2 a.m. Definitely, because we're starting so late. And we can't start earlier because my plane doesn't get here until a certain time and I have to eat food. And I will be pumped with coffee. I will be suffering jet lag. Like, it's going to be a mess. Come and support us if you, I mean, we'll be going for so long. You'll definitely be awake and available during some part of it. But that's the next time I'll be back. In the meantime, I will be going to New York to visit some family, and then to Ulaanbaatar in Mongolia, the country. If you guys don't know, half my family is from Inner Mongolia in China, and China does not let other people in right now. So this is the longest time in my life I have not been to Mongolia in my entire life. and I'm feeling a little homesick. So we're using Outer Mongolia as a proxy for my homeland. It'll be cool. It looks super pretty. We got a nice tour guide set up for a week-long stay there, out in the middle of nowhere. Driving out in a Range Rover, living with nomads. Seeing the stuff, and without internet access, probably for most of it. So that'll be a cool experience. Normally, when I go to Inner Mongolia, I've only been camping for at most overnight one night. So this is going to be 4 nights overnight, and it's going to be a longer kind of trip. So that'll be really cool. It'd also just be cool to see Outer Mongolia as a country I've never been to before, and having, since the split, developed a different culture than Inner Mongolia, I'm sure. And after that, I will be going to Seoul in South Korea, because just like China does not let us into Inner Mongolia, North Korea is not letting us into North Korea, so we have to go to South Korea. And we'll be in Seoul for a few days, catch a K-pop show, walk around, enjoy the city, have it be a nice contrast to our grasslands, middle of nowhere experience in Mongolia. And then that's our trip. It's a 3-week long trip. New York, then Mongolia, then Korea, and then afterwards I have a wedding to go to too, so that's not even the end of my trip. But I will be back, very tired, very jet lagged, for the 31st. We'll be back to Hearthstoning at that point.
Sounds good. And in the meantime, look, if I get my computer back, that's a big if, but if I get my computer back, I can definitely stream for you guys. I want to get back to streaming. As of right now, it ain't happening, but, I want it to happen. I will keep you guys updated. I will tweet out if it does happen.
You can also test out streaming on your current computer.
I mean, I've tested it before, and it doesn't really work.
Okay.
But we can keep testing, like, whoops. Sure, we can test. I'm hoping to get my actual computer back, obviously. That would be great. That would be fantastic. But as of right now, that doesn't seem to be very realistic.
Okay.
Hopeful?
Yeah. We are definitely hopeful, because I'll be gone for 3 weeks, so that is a long time for that computer to get to you, and that is by far the longest time that we will be without a stream on the Grinning Goat, if you don't get your computer back, until after I'm back. So fingers crossed. Yeah. Someone in chat says I was gonna say you kind of look like Kim Jong-un in a bathrobe. There is a picture of me from I want to say 8 years ago when I was in Inner Mongolia, and I was in a Soviet style coat. So Mongolia is really cold. It's like a desert, but it's a really cold desert. So we were there in the late spring, but it was super cold. So they had to give us all fur coats out in the grasslands. And I had my shades on, and I looked like the splitting image of Kim Jong-un. I still have that picture. It is an excellent picture. I look pretty badass. How Kim Jong-un usually looks like a huge dork, but in some pictures, he actually looks like he's crazy and about to destroy the whole world, and vaguely cool. That's how I looked.
Great. Fantastic.
Mm-hmm. We'll try to replicate that picture if we get the fur coats again on our trip. Because you gotta have the Soviet style fur coats. The Mongolian style fur coat don't send the same message,
That's fantastic.
All right. Okay. Are we at the end of this? We wanted to make this a short podcast, also because we have Diablo Immortal clan activities. It is the Grinning Go clan, if you guys don't know, is the number 3 dark clan now on the Worldstone server. So that's pretty high up. And the right is happening, which is the big world big world PvP event where we're probably going to lose. As in the collective of the shadows is probably going to lose, but it just keeps going until we win. It's a weird system. Basically the masses will keep getting more powerful. They'll just get bonus, plus 20% damage, plus 20% life every week until they eventually overwhelm the whales. That's the whole PvP mechanic for realm PvP in Diablo Immortal. And this is the first time you're facing a real human opponent, so it's kind of exciting. Anyway, that's it from us. I won't even have internet access for parts of the trip, so I'll check in with you guys when I'm back. Until then,
sounds good.
Until 3 weeks from now, this is ADWCTA.
This is Merp. See you guys.